stage is set. All engines go. Welcome to the angle. Let's start the show. Hold on tight. The stage is set. Dig in deep with no regrets. Red and green bars leading the way. Welcome to the angle. No time to delay. Markets rise and markets fall. Atomcash is ready to answer the call. While the bulls charge hard and the bears dig deep, the angle will keep you on your feet. Hold on tight, the stage is set. Dig in deep with no regrets. Red and green bars leading the way. Welcome to the angle, no time to delay. Cashing in on the highs and lows where the wind of fortune constantly blows. No looking back, keep your eyes on the prize. Fuel to run with a fire that never dies. Hold on tight, the stage is set. Dig in deep with no regrets. Red and green bars leading the way. Welcome to the angle, no time to delay.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Atomcash Angle, the show that flips the switch and floods the system with straight financial voltage. I'm Atomcash, and I'm bringing you the firepower that your financial life may have been missing. And whether you're new to trading or a trading savant, I aim to turn complexity into clarity with a shot of adrenaline. Now, today we have a thunderous lineup of segments for you all to give you as much information as quickly as possible, as per usual. So today we're going to do typically what we normally do in the morning, some live trading, market analysis, go over some news catalysts, review what happened yesterday. We'll probably touch on AVGO once again because their ER is coming up, obviously. And what I'm most excited for today, this is going to be around 10 o'clock-ish, is the heat check. So this is a segment I did once before, but we're going to do a little bit of a change on it. So what the heat check is, the point of it is to take the stocks that are really hyped right now, have a lot of meme ability to them. People are talking about them. So we're going to take your recommendations as well. But if there's any stock out there that is getting a lot of hype or a lot of attention on social media and whatnot, we're going to zone in on 2 to 5 names. We'll look at stock twits as well. We'll see like what's trending right now. We'll look at Twitter. We'll look at Instagram. See what's really like trending right now and see why some of these stocks are trending. And then also dig a little bit deeper to see if there's any substance to the hype. So if you have a name or a stock that you're interested in, I'll ask again later on when we get to that segment, but feel free to drop it in the chat and we'll see if we can include it in the segment. So the whole point of that again is to throw me in cold into this idea. So hopefully it's not a name I've heard of, but if I have, I'll express that I know of it. But throw me in pretty cold to a name that we don't really know about. Look at their technicals, take a look at why it's getting attention, if there's any financial or if there's any fundamental reason why it's getting some more attention recently, and kind of develop an opinion there, whether bullish or bearish, and check the heat on the stock. I get it. Anyway, hope you're all having a great day. It is Wednesday, 9:20. We've got 10 minutes until the market opens, so let's do our quick little rundown. First things first, let's check and see if we have any major news coming up for the day. We mentioned yesterday that Trump may have been speaking today, or was going to speak today. It was on the docket yesterday. It is now, oh, I lied. I was going to say it's disappeared. It is now reappeared. Trump signing proclamations at 3 o'clock. Whatever that means, we'll find out. Outside of that, you also have the Beige Book. At 2, you've got the budget director speaking at 2 as well. So same time, you're going to have that. But outside of that, outside of really PMI at 9:45 and ISM services at 10, so 2 really, again, we had JOLTS yesterday. We're going to have non-farm payroll as well. We're getting we had ADP employment this morning, which is why you're seeing this drop in pre-market here. Around 8:15, we got these ADP numbers. It was not fantastic. So we're getting a lot of data in relation to the job market this week. Non-farm is what I'm most interested in, and JOLTS, which we had yesterday. You saw the reaction of JOLTS. And we'll have non-farm tomorrow. I believe it's pre-market. Let's just see on that. I'm sorry, I lied. I'm thinking it's Thursday. Friday, we have non-farm. That's at 8:30 pre-market. So be very, very aware of that. That will more than likely be a bigger news event that you're going to want to be aware of, just like JOLTS. But outside of that, today, pretty clean day. Like I said, you got those 2 little Rome bumps at 9:45, 10 o'clock you want to be aware of. Outside of that, with the random Trump speed bump in the middle, or towards the end of the day, I should say, just be aware that it's happening. Not necessarily that something may or may not happen, but just be aware that it's happening. So I like to highlight what I like to call landmines throughout the day, because that could blow you up out of your position if you're not aware these things are happening. So you want to make sure you have them on your docket. The intro song made me want to say good morning. Thank you for good morning me back. I'm just made good morning a verb. So thank you for the good morning back. Good morning to you. Thank you for tuning in. All right, so we got our news for the day. Let's take a look at SPY. So yesterday, before I left the stream, I mentioned how, when we look at SPY and NVIDIA specifically, I mentioned how I didn't really want to see SPY take off. We did have good JOLTS, and I said that we probably yesterday weren't going to see SPY push to the upside unless we saw NVIDIA break that key LOI. And NVIDIA kind of farted around it, but SPY still had a pretty good upward thrust. So little wrong on that analysis, but I would say what really pushed it up, and like I've been saying to watch, more importantly, is your IWM for sentiment. Yesterday, IWM closed up almost 1.5 or over 1.5%, while your Qs lagged, comparatively speaking, 0.8%. It's almost double the movement on IWM comparatively to the Qs. So as I've said going throughout this week, we want to see, if you're a bull longer term, IWM go up and VIX come down. And we are so far seeing that. Now, you're not out of the woods. Like I said, very data heavy week. But so far we're leaning in that direction. Now, as it pertains to SPY, and as we're sitting on the day here, we're kind of in this no man's land. We're north of this 592.65 big level, and we're north of this, what I like to call a localized. So it's a localized high. So it's a high in a range of price action. So that range of price actions, just here, let's get rid of my lines here momentarily. This range of price action goes back from 512 till now. And that old localized high was 595.54. So you're going to want to watch that if we come down into the open as support today, and see if that's established as a new support if we retest that into the open. But outside of that, get my lines back on here again, we're kind of in this like no man's land where we could mark up pretty quickly, actually, from a technical perspective, all the way to 601.92. Obviously, you're going to see 600 be some level of a resistance, a big psychological number, right? But 601.92 is the next area where I'm more interested in seeing a reaction here. So you do have $5 here on SPY, really $5 to the upside, obviously. But if that high breaks as well, you've got another $3 to the downside. So still favoring the bulls here, again, in general. If you were here on the Monday stream, I said I was about 60-40 bullish. I think I said I was 65-35. Today we're leaning 70-30. We're looking more and more bullish as this week has gone on, especially with how volume's looking, with how price action's looking. But again, it would be insincere for me to say that I'm feeling more bullish near term or longer term, just due to what we still have on the docket for this week from a risk standpoint in terms of catalysts. So still nervous, nervously bullish, cautiously bullish. Things are looking good. I want to see this week close out with a low VIX and a proportionately more bullish IWM. You even saw the red star yesterday break on IWM on the daily, which is a great sign. MACD starting to turn up, volumes there as well. And I mentioned volume on SPY, pretty good as well. So we're doing pretty good in terms of overall sentiment. Your VVIX is down. When we talked about that, the volatility of volatility, that's down pretty low, honestly, actually. So if we look at our VVIX here, and at least this is the daily here. Let's go to the weekly. Typically, this like 90 to 80 area is where it likes to kind of hover. And you can see on my chart here, I put the crosshairs right around here, like at 85-ish. You can see a lot of interaction there. So this is really where VVIX starts to get comfortable, and you want VVIX to be comfortable in this area because it's saying that volatility is smooth, right? We're not going to see big volatile swings in volatility, both to the upside and the downside. So that's saying the market is more certain of the directionality of volatility. So that's why I said the best case scenario is we see, and I believe I said this on Monday, we see IWM mark up, we see VIX come down, and we see VVIX come down to stay flat, which we're starting to get to that point where I'm looking for it to just kind of flatten out around here, while the VIX continues to, I guess I should say, precipitously, can't say the word right now, fall to the downside a little bit. So that would be the best sign you want to look for here, being more bullish than bearish, or if you are more bullish than bearish in general. The other thing I want to highlight here is the SPY weekly chart's actually looking pretty good as well. So the best case scenario really is for the bulls to push it here, even the monthly, depending on how this month plays out, obviously. Not looking the worst. And I mentioned this, I think last week. We talked about the monthly SAR. And again, I highlighted the SAR. I had a whole class on it. I'll probably go back and clip that video and put it on YouTube. But if you don't believe me, put the SAR on your charts. Put it on the monthly calendar, and I went back and did this whole exercise with you guys. Every single time the red monthly SAR is broken, there's at least a 70-point move in the S&P, or SPY in this case. And that's not even, we're not even looking at percentage gain. We're just looking at proportional point, so dollar gain. So obviously as the SPY was cheaper, that $70 move is a more, percentage-wise, a much larger move. So watching this area, this monthly red SAR, that number is 607.74. And obviously, if we close under that this month, that SAR is going to come down again by roughly, let's see, 608. It'd probably be at like 605 if we don't break it this month. Breaking that is the point. That's my like super go point, assuming volatility is still low. That's where I'm going to get very long the market. And be very risk on at that point, because longer term things are looking to shape up to be better. Now, it's funny for me to say that with we're not all living under a rock. There's a war, there's tariffs are insane, and inflation's insane, and everything's crazy. And obviously anything can happen. I mean, we look at this tariff candle, I'll call it, from April. It's a massive move down, so that could happen at any point in time. But if we're just playing the odds of statistics, statistically, breaking that red SAR on the monthly would lend me to be very bullish. Again, we're just looking at one technical indicator, but that in combination with a red MACD looking to flip over, a pretty steady RSI at 66, I feel pretty happy longing the market in general when we get over that area. Now, to be fair, we could reject 600. We could come back down and have that more bearish case play out that I talk about on the daily here. And get back into this like 570 area. So I'm not saying that's going to happen soon, but that getting over that like 605, 607 area is what is most enticing to me and what I'm willing to wait for as a more aggressive bull in general. We got about 1 minute until the market opens, so we'll hone in on things right now. Just kind of take a peek at the market. And before the market opens, guys, I asked you twice to stream, but if you haven't already, do me a quick favor, whether you're on YouTube, X, or Instagram, drop a like on the stream, comment on it, retweet it, share it out, subscribe or follow me, whatever it may be. Again, I'm a very small fish in this game, so if you are enjoying the content, you come here, you watch regularly, doing that a little bit really does help me in the algorithm against all these other people who have much bigger channels. And if you enjoy what you see here, then that would help me greatly. So I appreciate it very much. Now the market is open, now that I've got my cheap plug-in, and we're ready to go. So right now we're opening up, let me just make sure, okay. Opening up a tiny bit of a gap up, very baby gap up, about $1 here. That's coming off of that ADP downside. So you watch that pre-market low, and yesterday, or this week's localized high that I mentioned at the pre-market, that number again is 595.54. I would prefer that we see some level, not necessarily selling, but more or less like profit takings or some downside move here before considering long in the market today. I'm not necessarily rushing to be a short on the market today. that can change at 9:45 and 10 when we get a little bit more volume, a little bit more information here. But I would be a little cautious on this open just because of where we're opening. And remember, in this scenario, again, depending on how that data comes out, the risk reward actually favors the bulls here because there is a larger dollar gain to the upside than the downside. So I'm saying I'd prefer to see a pullback come into the open here, then establish a long, because again, that risk reward is better for the bulls. But if I can get a better entry price, then I can make more money. So I'd prefer to let the things cool off. And my favorite saying that I say in our community over exclusive trading all the time is, I would rather have missed money than lost money. So I'd rather miss out on a trade that I might have been right on than actually lose money. So that's kind of my viewpoint on that. So we'll wait and see if things play out here in the open. We'll flip around. We'll look at the sectors as well. I like to do that with you guys and see. As you can see right now, QQQ and IWM, no divergence today, which is nice to see. So you're seeing some growth and you're seeing small caps have some bullishness into the open here, which is really nice to see if you are a bull. VIX sub 18, which is fantastic if you're leaning more bullish. VVIX sitting around that 90, UVXY at 2130. This is interesting. Keep an eye on your UVXY. So the reason why I track UVXY versus just the VIX, UVXY is giving you, I believe it's 30 days, right? 30 days into the future. VIX, obviously spot VIX, so those contracts roll. But UVXY can give you a little bit more of a slightly further out. Obviously between your spot VIX and like your next contract. So your UVXY, at least in my opinion, is a way to kind of gauge that midterm volatility. So keep an eye on this and keep an eye on this general, like this 20-ish level, to see if we can push a little bit lower here on volatility. Was late already? Did you speak about the popular stocks you mentioned towards the end of the day yesterday? No, I did not. So that we're going to do what's called the heat check later on in the segment. If you're coming in late, if you guys want to, you can drop names in the chat. Any popular stocks. The idea is that I want to be thrown into these names that I don't really know or may not know a lot about, and kind of see what the hype is around them, see how they're sitting technically, and see if there's any substance really to the company, whether from a financial, fundamental, or technical point of view. So if that interests you, feel free to drop the names in the chat. Just make sure they're names that don't just pick like, I don't know, UPS, which isn't like a hype stock, but like one of these stocks that's getting a lot of hype on social media or anything like that. Feel free to drop those names in the chat and we'll siphon through them later on. All right, let's flip around. Let's look at NVIDIA is on my bull line. We talked about this. This 141.36. That's the point where I want to be bullish on NVIDIA, but it has to hold there. And that's not a good 5-minute looking candle. Ooh, mama. We're actually wicking it right now. So if you're a bull today, specifically on semis, watch this level very closely on NVIDIA. This 141.36, you're going to want to see that hold. And this is where I, again, would look to start to open a position on semis and bullish on NVIDIA in general. But don't forget, tomorrow we have Broadcom's earnings, and I did a whole breakdown on that. And if you missed it, I actually just uploaded it this morning. So there's a video on my channel right now if you're on YouTube. And if you're not on YouTube, go to my YouTube. But there's a video giving you an analysis on Broadcom's earnings, which is tomorrow. And then it also compares their relation to the SMH, which is a semiconductor ETF, and the weight in the SMH versus NVIDIA and TSM. So you kind of have an idea of how that ER could affect the overall market, specifically semiconductors, which is a big growth area of the market, as I'm sure if you're watching, you probably know. Looking at Apple, let's go back into our little market roundup here. The bulls have impressed me the last few days. They're trying. You're right at the 50 MA here on the daily chart. That number is 204.32. So you got about a buck here, $1.50. Before you're tapping the 50 MA on the daily, which is where you're going to want to see the bears push it back down and the bulls power through. So keep an eye on that level. Like I said, I'm not anywhere bullish here until we see a reaffirmed hold of this 195.83, which we are seeing so far. And you could argue that it's very gappy, to be fair. But you could argue that some level of a double bottom or triple bottom on this level and a base is forming here. But this is not a name I'd want to chase in general. In fact, like I said, I think there's better risk to reward to the downside if and when this 195.83 breaks. So for me personally, Apple's kind of like a no touch right now. I don't really see there's not good risk to reward either which way. There's a case where it could go both ways, but I'd rather wait and see before considering that. Microsoft, did it tap it? 29 cents off of all-time highs. I've talked about this short I've been stalking on Microsoft. We were literally 29 cents off today. Today might be the day where I swing a short, which is going to be very risky considering, if HVGO says they might have a partnership with Microsoft, whatever may happen. But today may be the day, either that or taking like a put debit spread or a call credit spread on Microsoft. So keep an eye on that. If that's something that if you want some downside exposure on a big name, I would manage a tight stop on that kind of trade because you're at a key. This is all-time highs. You're sitting at all-time highs right now. But again, to be fair, you've grinded up pretty hard. You had a hard gap up. We didn't really cool off. Volume here is okay. It's starting to wane, like I said yesterday, with the exception of this one day on 5:30. Starting to wane. In fact, yesterday didn't have fantastic volume, all things considered. Definitely not a position I want to rush into, but definitely something I want to keep on watch as a potential short on not necessarily the market, but as I guess you can think of it as some level of protection, right? For my longs, essentially. Google right now, it's trying to put in a recovery. It's iffy here. We're still below the 200 MA off of that break. Give it to the end of this week and see if the bulls can recover here. Again, full transparency, I'm long Google at this 162.64 area, so I'm still north of my entry here, but it is a little shaky. You're seeing a lot of volume play out here. You're dancing around an old gap. Iffy name, just be mindful of that. Amazon, like I said, has stayed and it's continued to stay bullish. As long as it's north of this $200.11 area, it's staying pretty bullish. Tesla, again, I'm not touching it until it's north 380. Sub 360, it's a bear. Tesla is a bear sub 360. I think I've said that since last week, and I will continue to say that if Tesla cannot push north of 360 with some fervorance, with some volume, it's bearish. And you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 red candles so far on the daily. That would suggest maybe some sort of mean reversion here in terms of price action. But you're seeing, if you look at the last 2 days here, a wick below and a wick above. So you're getting pretty tight in this 339.20 and this 345.72 LOI area. So you might see some choppiness in there before you get a decision either which way. I want to flip back to NVIDIA real quick. We're holding north of that level. That's going to be very important to see today. If you are a bull, SPY just ripping out the gate here. Pretty solid move, about 1.5 points here on SPY. All indexes not diverging, which is nice to see. The best markets to trade, or I should say the easiest markets to trade, are when the markets aren't diverged. Russell goes up, Qs go up, SPY go up. Everything's not diverged. Everyone's saying, yep, we're going up. And so far, that's the theme on the day. In fact, tech is leading the pack. Let's check out our sectors real quick. Utilities actually lagging the group right now at about 1% after having a pretty bullish open yesterday, closing lower and now pushing to the downside. But it's not necessarily a bad thing because as you notice here, your staples are also red on the day. So what does it mean? Again, if you've been watching this program, when you see your staples red, your utilities red, and energy's flat. But again, energy's a weird one right now, mainly because of how oil is and world macro drama. But seeing specifically your utilities and your staples red while your tech is green could be indicative of risk on behavior. So people are willing to take their money out of safer assets and put it into more riskier assets, which if you are, especially someone who's long semiconductors, may be something that you have a strong interest in pre-AVGO's earnings tomorrow, which I think is, again, I've been saying it a few times this morning, but I think it's going to be something that's overlooked by a lot of people, an oversight by a lot of people. For some reason, they're not focusing on it, and let's just check in on AVGO real quick. Another all-time high, it looks like. Yep. I mean, they've got earnings tomorrow. You broke all-time highs yesterday. You're 13 points off of the old all-time high from yesterday. Like, you're up 2.5% on the day. It's aggressively pushing to the upside, which would terrify me more as a bull. But hey, if they knock earnings out of the park and they have some fantastical announcement, that could be really, really beneficial for the growth portion of the market. Again, looking at semiconductors as the canary in the coal mine for AI and the next bastion of wealth here in the world, which will be AI. Flipping back to our sectors here, we see that real estate is pretty flat. It's red on the day, but pretty flat. Materials are up. Industrial's up. Good to see healthcare getting a little bit of a move here, up about 6%. Financials pretty flat. Consumer discretionary a little flat, and comm services up. So overall, a little bit of a mixed bag, but like I said, the biggest laggard that you want to pay attention to is the fact that utilities are down and consumer staples are down by the largest percentage in comparison to any of the other sectors here, while we're seeing the other sectors turn green. Most importantly, we're seeing tech up a decent chunk, about 0.3%, but healthcare is up a decent amount too, 0.6%. So we're seeing potentially some money rotation here, while we are also looking at a non-diverged market, which is what you want to see, again, if you are someone who is leaning more bullish. VIX actually sold off pretty hard into the open here. VVIX open, it's now green, open higher, moved a little lower though. UVXY pretty flat. Keep an eye, like I said, on NVIDIA here. If NVIDIA breaks high a day, it's probably going to rally today. Yeah, so on the 5-minute and on the 1-minute, strong possibility if NVIDIA breaks that high and can get over its pre-market high, 142.62, which is only 50 cents from here. Strong possibility you actually get a decent rally on NVIDIA today if that can break. Big if on that. It will not be easy. Do not forget, we have data here in 3 minutes. We've got PMI at 9:45, and then we have ISM Services PMI at 10. So those two things can and will more than likely affect the market. So you want to make sure that you're conscientious of that if you are especially day trading at this point in time. Like I said, more than likely, I would prefer if we came down before considering a long position. So I might get that opportunity off of data. We'll see. But otherwise, not really looking to rush this open, especially after yesterday's move, which I, was not decently, but partially wrong on. I was betting that NVIDIA would have to break that level to get that push. Now, so that's what I'm saying now. If NVIDIA can break that high today, with how the markets are sitting, we should see a strong push here on the overall market today, with NVIDIA showing that strength that it didn't necessarily have yesterday. It did have strength, it did push up, but it didn't continue through that key LOI. Now that key LOI that was resistance yesterday is now acting as support thus far. So if that continues to act as support, especially today with how the markets are positioned, this could be your catalyst to get a strong push to the upside today on the market. So you're going to want to watch NVIDIA specifically. Do we tap it? I think we just tapped it on Apple. Yep, we are at the 50 MA on Apple on the daily chart. So as a bull, you're going to want to see them step in right now. As a bear, this might be a decent place to take a short, which I'm contemplating doing right now as I'm talking to you. Might take an at the money put. I might miss the train though. We'll see. We got POC up here. We have a little bit of volume. I'll wait the 1 minute into data. I could miss the move here. It looks like it's going to pull back. Volume's a little iffy. We'll wait and see. If I do take a short, I'll probably take it at the 205 puts for this week. You could do the 202s, but typically the 202.50s or the ones that are the 0.25 ones are a little less liquid. So you could have a hard time getting in and out of those. It's also Apple, so it's a big company, so you probably won't have that hard of a time. But that is something, a risk factor if you are trading options. Those 202.50s may be a little less liquid. So I'm going to keep an eye on this contract here. And we're going to keep an eye on Apple as we get through data, because that might be where I take a short, actually, or at least a short position on Apple here on the day. All right, now it's 9:45, so we're getting data. Now, if bulls push it here and break the high, like I said, the market's set up to move to the upside today, which is great. I'm just playing a little bit bearish on Apple because it's a key level on the daily, at least just looking at a basic MA here, and it's moved up 4 days in a row. Could flip here, though. Like, just looking at it, it could power through this level, so it's not without risk. But if I was to take a short, if they can't break over this high, this would be the place to take it. So that's where I'm being a little patient. You're holding the AEMA here. You're above the POC. So we're going to wait and see. Those 205 puts are trading around a decent spread. You've got about a 6-cent spread on those two. So be cautious on those puts. I'm going to type this out and prep it just in case I do take this for our members in our community. That way I can just hit enter if I take it. I think it's going to fire down here. Bulls would have to hold it, like I said, right here, essentially. You got the AEMA meeting here with your POC. MACD starting to turn over. Volume's not fantastic, though, which is what's making me a little bit more cautious to take the short. And you've got these wicks here signaling that some buying pressure is pushing up the price, just looking at the candles here. But again, volume's a little iffy, so there could be an argument made both ways there. Okay. I also don't want to chase. Sorry if I'm being quiet because I'm focusing, but if this closes lower, it's probably going to fire down. It doesn't look like it's going to close lower. We're back testing the POC here on this candle. Yeah, I'm more than likely going to take a stab here momentarily. Okay, again, this is the 205s for this week, put side. Just watching them here for a minute. All right, I'm going to start adding slowly. Getting a few. I'm going to tell you guys my average here as soon as I'm good to go. Okay. All right, all things considered, I'm pretty light on this. Might grab another one or two. Let's see what happens right here. Dead air. Sorry. All right, this is where I'll probably add my last batch if we reject here, and then I'll count that. All right, cool. All right. Now I'm long those puts. 217 average. So that's Apple. Oops, I did a PPO. Apple for this week, the 205 puts at 217. So basically looking for that all-time high to reject here. Or no, I'm sorry, all-time high. Daily high to reject here. If we come back and test this POC and float around here for another second, there's a strong chance it will reject to the downside. Like I said, on the day, though, bulls seem pretty bullish. So I am taking a little bit of a asynchronous trade here. But I like the risk to reward if we cannot break the highs here. So we'll see if we can stay sub the highs here, especially if we come back down. So then we'll have basically a double top, sit around here for a moment, then there'll be a higher likelihood to fire to the downside on Apple specifically. Probably after I close out this trade, we'll go into the heat check. So if you haven't already, guys, feel free to drop those names in the chat. So any of these companies that are like hyped up or you may have an interest in that I may not have heard of, feel free to drop them in the chat. We'll fire through, like I said, 2 to 5 of them. Yeah, drop their ticker specifically. And that way I'll pull them up on the screen. We'll see from a technical basis, from a fundamental basis, and from a financial, if relevant, basis, if there's any substance behind the hype. So if that interests you, again, feel free to participate. You can do it either on YouTube or X. Drop the name in the chat. Actually, I can pull up my Instagram one as well. Drop whatever stock ticker in the chat if it's one of these like hype names or interesting names that you're seeing a lot of social media revolve around, and we'll take a little bit of a mini dive, not a deep dive, a mini dive into these names and see if there's any substance to the meme. I guess they are memes, but the meme trade in general. Okay, so we did make a new high here, but not a lot of confidence on that push. You see a little bit of volume there. Let's see, SPY. Like I said at open, I'd prefer to see SPY come down anyway before establishing a long. But right now, Apple is trying to really push through this level here. It's gonna try. But I will be patient and see what happens. Yeah, watch SPY. Let's check out our volatility as well. Let me swing back over here. IWM getting a decent rejection here. Q's coming down. SPY starting to come down. Where's my VIX? VIX slowly moving up overall. I'm sorry, this is VVIX. I mean, VIX is also slowly moving up. Ooh, okay, watch NVIDIA. You're breaking that key level here. Ideally, as a bull today, you'd want to hold above this level. So what in a perfect world, we would see both Apple come down, obviously, because I'm bearish on it now. But we see SPY come down and sweep those lows. We'd see NVIDIA kind of hold this area while SPY falls. And obviously, seeing Apple probably get back to like open, roughly around open price, this 202-ish area. So I said you got a good risk to reward here, establishing a short up here for about 2 points. So pretty solid move here if we get my short and it plays out like I think it will. So we will wait and see and be patient on this one. Basically, your trigger is going to be this POC here. Decent volume, little volume shelf intraday here. You're getting your green scar. You're getting your green SAR seeking up on it a little bit, but breaking below this level, especially with volume. So watch your volume when this level breaks. Will more than likely push you down to like 203.45 pretty quickly, and then you're more than likely going to come down to that 202.50-ish area, assuming we see bears push here momentarily. Now, what I will do to close out my short position here is if we see the market come down, we see these other names come down. Let me flip back over here. We see Microsoft. Well, Microsoft is made a new all-time high. We see what was I saying? NVIDIA. There we go. NVIDIA come down. If we see Google come down, if we see Amazon come down, we see a lot of the Mag 6, as I like to call them. Tesla's already moving down. Come to the downside, but Apple hold here, and we see the market come down. That would be my sign to close out on my short. So we'll wait and see on this and kind of go from there. Actually, let me go like this. Let's add it to, there we go. And that way I can watch it over there. There, nice and easy. Put it at the top of the watch list. That way you guys keep an eye on it. Alrighty. Let me take a peek over here. Let's make sure I'm not missing any news or anything crazy coming down the pike here. Again, we have news here, or data I should say, in about 7 minutes. So you want to keep that on your radar. And then past that, like I said, we'll roll into the heat check. So if there's any stocks you guys feel like that you want to drop in the chat, I'm going to actually look right now at see if there's anything trending in general that may be of interest. Now, there's one catalyst. I don't want to do any micro or nano cap stocks, so it needs to have at least $100 million market cap. I need a water. It needs to have at least $100 million market cap, because even though I'm a very small fish, I don't want to get accused of pumping, dumping, whatever. So we need to look at names that have at least $100 million market cap, just to be fair. And even then, I mean, again, I don't have enough people watching this where I'd be concerned, but I don't necessarily want to influence stock prices in any way, shape, or form. So please, if you're dropping a name, like one of the top names apparently on StockTwits right now is a $5 million market cap name. So we're not doing those. So as long as it's over 100 million, we'll keep an eye on that, or we'll entertain that. Looking at StockTwits specifically, some of the names here, you guys can let me know if you have any interest in them. Otherwise, we'll pull them out of a hat. USAU. CrowdStrike is actually trending. MCTR. These are names I haven't heard of. Oh, I've heard of CrowdStrike. ATYR. RDW. GWRE. And CoreWave is trending as well. So those are some of the trendy names right now for equities. And in terms of most active, let's see what's the most active. That one's too small, but that one is something you want to keep an eye on, which I'm not going to say out loud, but you can find it on your own. It begins with an H. APLD, MCTR, and SMCI, which I'm familiar with, and HIMS. So if you guys want any of those, feel free to drop them. And again, if there's any other names that you're interested in, I should also probably pop over to Reddit. I'm sure Reddit, that's a cesspool. I really don't want to do that. I don't want to go to Reddit. Maybe I won't. We'll wait. I'll wait and see. I see I've got 3 names in the chat: ODD, Oscar, and Bull. So if you want to, especially on YouTube, feel free to just drop it in the chat and I will pull it up. Sorry, if you were on X, please resubmit. If you dropped a ticker, please resubmit that ticker, just because now it disappeared for whatever reason. So if you're watching on X, please do me a favor and just resubmit that ticker and we will take a look. All right, Apple is still farting around here off this new high that it broke, but like I said, there's not a lot of strength behind it just yet. So I'm just going to be patient on this position for now. Again, if we see SPY fire down and we don't see Apple fire down, it's going to show relative strength. I'm going to want to close out my short position, obviously. The Qs are moving a bit lower. In fact, the Qs are looking, actually, I should say IWM is more bearish out of the 3 indexes right now, so that could be something that we want to be aware of on your small and mid caps in terms of sentiment. Talked about sentiment quite a bit. VIX moving pretty flat. UVXY pretty flat. All right, watch your green SAR here, and again, use your POC. So your POC in this case specifically is 204.44. If we melt through that green SAR and that 204.44, there's a very strong possibility we're going to tap like 203.45-ish on Apple. And then if that breaks, probably another $1 lower. So like I said, decent risk to reward here if we can get that confirmed break to the downside. And it will be a closeout if we see the SPY come down quite a bit and Apple not fall, which Apple, relatively speaking, is showing strength in comparison to its tech peers here. Microsoft showing the most strength, another new all-time high. Like I said, I'm not rushing this short here on Microsoft, and this would be something like a swing short, where it's very rare I will swing a short, but you might actually have a better odds of a successful trade with a spread on Microsoft, if you like the short idea. So doing, again, actually, let's see what would be more advantageous. Low IV percentile, so a put debit spread would be the best case scenario here if you wanted to establish a short position on Microsoft. But I'm obviously, like I said, I'll wait and see how we react here. Breaking all-time highs, I typically don't touch. I will short, like I would consider a short there, but I'm not going to rush in unless I'm like aggressively day trading it. So just watch that very closely today. Now that that level is officially broken, I do want to keep an eye on AVGO. So I'm going to add it to our watch list here, just because it's been kind of crazy today and yesterday. Coming down a little bit off of the highs on the day. Those Apple contracts are sitting at 191 right now. So they are a little bit underwater at the moment. Again, I've got a 217 entry on those, so we'll pop back and see what happens there momentarily. Let me also add, while we're waiting here, let's get Oscar in the chat. Oscar Health, that one I know. We also have Bull. Add that one. And then the other one was ODD. Oddity Tech. Now, this is a tiny company. Doesn't look like it. 4 billion. Cool. All right. I'll take 1 or 2 more names. So if you guys have 1 or 2 more names, let me know. I'll just look at these charts real briefly. This is ODD. Let me familiarize myself a little bit before we dive in here. Israel-based company engaged in beauty and wellness sector on the molecular level. Interesting. The company is operating a tech platform, interesting, of its own brand on the internet, whose purpose is to support a portfolio of brands and services connected to the beauty and wellness market and develop... Ooh, my Apple put just went up real quick. 210. Hold on. I just saw that pop. 195. I see your TMDX. I'll add that in a second. What? Did we get a drop? We get our drop. There's the news. All right, broke the SAR here. Those Apple cons popped real quick to 210. So let's see if there's follow through on this move now. Good volume here as well. If the bulls push it up here, again, that's not going to be a great sign if I'm a short, but let's keep an eye on this for a moment now that it's 10 o'clock. And then we'll get back into learning on ODD a little bit. Good volume here. Let's check our other Mag 6s. We're waiting. Big red boy on Microsoft for now. Google. Pretty synchronous move here. Nvidia's not recovering that level. Be very careful on semis right now. Yeah, be very careful on semis intraday. If Nvidia can't recover that level, be very careful. And AVGO is firing to the downside as well, so be very careful on your semis specifically today. Apple is showing relative strength. It is. For this downside move, it's showing relative strength, which is probably a sign I should close my short position here. But I'm going to wait another 2 or 3 minutes to see if that changes its tune, as Apple is bouncing now to the highs. Didn't think this would be more of a slow burner today, but we'll see. All right, let me add, you said TMDX. TMDX. It sounds like a therapeutic company. Transmedics, $4 billion company, so that fits the bill. We'll add that. All right, one more name. I will take one more name. Otherwise, I'll pick it out of a hat. So if you have one that is popular, trendy, feel free to drop it in the chat right now. And Apple is I'm actually really impressed that Apple is pushing through this 50-day here. I am impressed so far. Okay. There we go. All right. Let me go back because I wanted to learn about this odd company again. The company is using algorithms and machine learning models to match a corresponding physical product. Interesting. So you're mixing AI with cosmetics. That's very interesting and hell of a chart. Very bullish off of this last earnings, it looks like, at the end of, what's that, April? Stock price is almost up 50% since then. Prior to that, pretty flat. I'm guessing they said the word AI a lot on their conference call. Okay, cool. I know Webull, so if you don't know Webull, it's what you're looking at. That's the bull ticker here. So brokerage platform, Chinese-based company. And they recently launched a premium, like kind of how like Robinhood is Robinhood Gold. They launched a premium. Actually offers, at least in my opinion, better perks than Robinhood Gold. We'll get into that. Oscar's a health company. I know I have a long in this company actually, but they're a healthcare company. Again, with full stack, so more tech behind everything here as well. A lot of people like this name. I see a lot of people talking about it on social media, and like I said, I have a long in Oscar right now. So I will be a little biased on that one, obviously, but I'll tell you what I'm already looked at there. And then TMDX, medical technology company that's transforming organ transplant therapy for patients with end-stage lung, heart, and liver failure. Interesting. The company specializes in portable extracorporeal warm perfusion and assessment of donor organs for transplantation. Organ care system, blah, 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 blah. Blah, 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 blah. Okay, cool. So healthcare. Healthcare supplies, organ transplants. Interesting. All right, so let's set this up real quick. I guess we'll come back to Apple. Like I said, it's showing relative strength. The market fire down. Market's being bearish. Apple is still moving to the upside. I want to see if it actually just catches on, but right now it is showing relative strength. Tesla is a dog. As I've been saying, south of 360 is getting hammered. Yeah, Apple's actually showing relative strength on the day. That might have been a bad place for me to take a short pre-data. Which, it's okay. I'll give that another... Well, actually, let's check on the daily if there's anything else we can look for here. It's pretty solid. Like I said, there's a good chance if it breaks that area here that the bulls could step in. So I just don't love the... It could be one of these days, and that's why I don't like when price action gets grindy, but I feel like it's going to staircase up, elevator down kind of thing, which is why I want to be more patient. I think I'm going to wait on it. Yeah, I'm going to be patient on it. We're still near the money, so I'm not as concerned. It's a 205 put, so we'll come back to it. Anyway, let's roll into... Let me pick one more name because we didn't have anyone else drop a name. So let's roll into the heat check here. Let's pick trending names. Not a... Wow, some of these companies are crazy. $3 million market cap. Like, you could just buy that company. It's so tiny. And it's trending #1 on StockTwits. It's absurd. Ooh, okay, this one might be good. MCTR. Mainly because the quick AI overview is questioning if it's a pump and dump and a scam Chinese company, which those are my favorite ones to analyze. So let's get into it. All right. Let me minimize that. Cool. All right, so this is the heat check, and what we're going to do, we have 5 names that are popular right now. We're going to go over all 5 names and see if there's any real substance to why they're popular. Look at them from a... Well, understand the hype if there is hype, and understand from a technical point of view if there is any opportunity there. So the first name on that list is Oscar Health. Oscar Health, in full transparency, is a name that I'm personally long in, right around this 14.20 area. So right now I'm down on my position. But the way that I've personally established my long here is basically risking the 50 MA here from a technical basis, looking at this 1387 area to hold. So basically where we are today on the daily chart. With a decent risk to reward to the upside here. MACD curling, decent volume. Pretty popular name that we're seeing. So this is a full stack healthcare company, or healthcare and technology company that includes insurance as well. So a lot of things going on here, specifically with Oscar. Looking at the daily and the weekly, you can see it's kind of been somewhat of a bear. And you see that I've charted this out already because it's something that I personally have an interest in. Whereas the other names may or may not have any charting with them because it's not a name I've been long. But looking at this name, it is a name where I do see the opportunity, especially with how the volume's reacting at this level, that it could be a decent long with a managed risk. Meaning the managed risk is, at least in this case, I'm risking or considering the 50 MA here on the daily to see if that area holds. But realistically, it's more than likely going to trap between 14 and between 1584 for a little bit of time. Now, if that 1584 breaks, which lines up with one of my LOIs and the 200 MA, it could get back up to this 18 and farther areas pretty quick. Notice how you're seeing a big block of volume here come through, especially off of earnings. They had a big pop in volume, and then since then, your VMA has been aggressively higher. So this name does obviously have the hype behind it, which is great for the heat check. It's those kinds of companies that we want to take a peek at. But I think from a managed risk to reward standpoint, this could be a decent name to hold specifically shares in. If you do consider contracts, maybe consider some time, because there is a strong chance of this chopping around here. I think this is the kind of name where a lot of people are going to get chewed up on weekly options specifically, where unless you're day trading, you're getting in and out very quickly, you're more than likely going to get chewed up on a name like this just because of where it's sitting on the chart. Let's just check real quick. Let me zoom over to social media, and we'll read a post or two, or I'll read it out loud because I know you guys can't see on the screen. I'll read it out loud and see if there's something that may have been said. I'm filtering by top comments so we can see if there's something to analyze there. Oscar Health sitting in over $3 billion of cash and generating income. Someone says this company will hit $18. I don't disagree personally. Other people talking about how it's going to have a bigger breakout than Hims and Palantir. I'm just highlighting the hype right now so you understand what people are saying. Oscar has a shareholder meeting tomorrow. A lot of people trying to pump this name up. I think you want to be very realistic with Oscar specifically, and understand. I believe it's a $3 billion market cap. What are we at? $3 billion market cap. So decent sized company, but it can have a decent move on that. When and if you see that move, I think the smart thing to do specifically would be to scale out in a position, especially if you're breaking over this 1584 area. So that would be Oscar in my with Oscar, I'd lean more equity than options. Next one is Bull. So if you don't know, Bull is Webull, the charting platform you're seeing here, the brokerage platform. And actually, this was a name I did out for a small profit pre-earnings or pre or after earnings. And their earnings were actually not that bad, but it is getting beat up right now, pretty bad. The chart's a mess mainly because of it went from whatever it was, $9 to $76 because hype. And I think a lot of people are getting suckered in with Webull specifically thinking it's the next Robinhood. They're not the same company at all. Just because it's a brokerage that is very popular retail does not mean it's the same company. Now, what I will say is what I think we're going to see with Webull specifically is very reminiscent of Snapchat. And let me explain why. So Snapchat, if we go all the way back in time when they IPO'd, this is the monthly chart, but IPO'd around $29-ish, and then it sold off, this is the monthly chart, mind you, sold off aggressively to like $4, right? Again, completely different company. I'm just saying what I think is going to happen chart-wise. I think Webull is going to get hammered down in price till it's like in the dirt, and it's going to do one of these. Another name that comes to mind for a similar name, especially if you trade Chinese stocks or you have an interest in Chinese stocks, NIO did a similar thing, where NIO was IPO'd at like $5, $6, whatever this is. Got a little hype off it being a an EV car, and went all the way down to $1.19 all-time lows and fired all the way up to $67. I think Bull is going to be one of those names, and I think if you're one of the people who are more cautious on Bull, you might be able to pick up a very cheap position for low risk. But this is not a name I would chase. I wouldn't chase the hype at all. I do think they have a decent business. I do think they have a decent business model. I do think they will bring in a lot more profit. I don't think the evaluation at this price is good. You're at a $4 billion, $5 billion valuation. I see this company, and I'm not going to short it necessarily, but I see this company being closer to a $1 billion evaluation, which at that point it could be undervalued. Again, not looking at growth prospects, but looking at like their overall company. That would kind of undervalue it in my opinion, but that would be where I'd want to consider a stab. And at that price, we're talking $2 or $3 a share. Now, to be fair, I don't think this company is going to go out of business. I think long-term, they're going to be just fine. I just think you'll be able to get a much cheaper position specifically on Webull. The next stock on the list is ODD, Oddity Tech. So full transparency, never heard of this company until today. It's my first hearing of it. Basically, it's an Israeli-based company that is within the beauty and wellness sector on a molecular level. So long story short, after reading this overview here, it basically mixes algorithms and machine learning in with makeup or beauty and wellness, which is a very interesting area to operate in. Now, looking at and something that piques my interest, if you don't know, markups on makeup are insanely high, and the margins on them are fantastic. So a company like this does pique my interest, but it is something I'd want to take a deeper dive in. Let me go and do our little social analyzation real quick and see what people are saying on social media real quick to highlight some of the hype before we get into the stock. Now, looking at what we're seeing here from top, I guess you should say toply rated results on X. People calling it a beast, blah, blah, blah. Nothing to, I'm looking for more of like the fundamentally and the things that people are hyped over. I'm seeing a lot of charts. People saying it's a short squeeze, new all-time high, new all-time high. All right, we're just seeing charts. I want to see something of substance here. People are shorted. Okay, not seeing too much in terms of rationality outside of what I've already said. I just see a lot of people who are trading it and think it's fun and looking at it from a technical perspective. Oh, here we go. The alleged AI makeup company, which once again just hit an all-time high. Last time the stock was this high. The founder dumped 5.5 million shares. Interesting. Okay. So nothing really in terms of news. So that doesn't really help me with understanding the backbone of this business. So before investing in this company, especially with, let's see how much of a markup this is from earnings. Roughly 77% markup. I'm not saying this isn't justified, but you are chasing here quite a bit. Now it's showing clear strength, right? Rally, even on that, even on this gap down here, continued rally and made a new all-time high. So people are definitely interested in this company. Before I could say if the hype is justified or not, I would say that this one would require a deeper dive, simply due to the fact that, simply due to the sector in which it operates. So it's operating in AI, it's operating in makeup. I love the idea of getting exposure in some of these makeup companies or makeup adjacent companies, mainly due to the fact, again, that our margins are so high. So these companies tend to be very liquid. But with AI, it could also just be a pump in terms of it being a gimmick, right? But it could also be very valid. The other thing you want to worry about is cost. So not necessarily the cost of the makeup or the cost of what they're providing the customer, but the cost to the company to run whatever this AI machine learning stuff is. We don't know, or at least I don't know at this point, the cost of what that is at this point. So this one, before I could say either which way, if I'd feel bullish or bearish on it, I like the idea of the company quite a bit, but it would require a deeper dive. Now, looking at this from a technical basis, did just hit an all-time high. I could see why it would be on the heat check, mainly due to it being hyped, and clearly this is your hype here. I personally have a very hard time, and if you're part of our community exclusive trading, you'll know, I have a very hard time chasing stocks at all-time highs because it's hard for me to justify a risk to reward. I prefer, as you know, I have raccoon trades and dumpster diving. I prefer finding those beat-down stocks that I already know their value and I have an idea of where price action and volume are already sitting, where I can get a fair evaluation or an idea that it is oversold and I can get long and take a logical stab on a trade. With this name sitting at all-time highs on high volume, granted the volume's been tapering off a little bit in the last 3 weeks. It wouldn't shock me to see a revision back down to at least the 65-ish area, especially if volume continues to drop here. But if we see volume pick up, I mean, this thing could keep pushing. Right now, it is a $4 billion company, so it's got plenty of room to still grow here as a company. This one would definitely require a deeper dive. I don't hate it, and I don't want to say I'd be necessarily bearish or bullish on this name. I would lean more bearish from a technical perspective, just because I personally have a hard time trading stocks that are marked up insanely well, and knowing that this was a hype stock and obviously people are talking about it and are excited about it. If you're not long from down this like 45 area, if you're not already long, then you could be chasing. So personally, I would stay away from this name, especially establishing a new long. If you're already long and you didn't realize any gains at this point, you may want to at least put a trailing stop loss or realize some level of a gain at this point, because this is a hard push. Again, this is a 77% markup from pre-ER, so it's a pretty solid move, and you don't want to lie to yourself and not take any profit off of a move like that. Two more stocks for you. This next one is TMDX. This is Transmedics Group. This is a company that is a medical technology company that's transforming organ transplant therapy for patients with end-stage lung, heart, and liver failure. So very interesting company in that regard, especially anything that is operating with, or making it more efficient, I should say, with organ transplants in general. Big market there if you don't know, and if this company can make that better, that is interesting, and it's a good name for the heat check for that reason, because it's like I said, an interesting market. Apparently it also provides trained organ procurement surgeons, clinical specialists, and transplant coordinators that provide end-to-end clinical solution. That's really interesting to me. So sometimes these people get organ transplants and they don't necessarily get proper therapeutic care afterwards. So this is looking like kind of like a full service company, I want to say, for organ transplants, which is peculiar. That's very interesting to me. I don't want to cheap out on you guys and say I would like to learn more about this before saying, but definitely would like to learn more about this one before establishing too much of an opinion here. This is a $4 billion company, so pretty decent sized company here. Looking at the daily chart right now, Looks like we gapped up on their earnings. Looking like they're making money, so they have revenue. It's good. Gapped up on their earnings, pushing up. They're above their 200 MA here. Now, from a technical perspective, let's zoom out a little bit. Nice little base formed here. And so this is what's called an island bottom. You could argue this is an island bottom. So when you have a gap down and you form price action and then you have a gap up, that's an island bottom. Assuming gaps weren't filled. It's almost the exact same place. Wow. That's typically a very bullish reversal, an island bottom. So this one could have a very justified run to the upside here. Now you're obviously leaving basically a double gap behind, a gap down here and a gap here. But those island bottoms tend to be very harsh reversals to the upside, which you're already seeing here. Marking up about, well, if you consider the gap up portion, that sounded southern for some reason, about $30-$40 here to the upside since ER, which is pretty solid. About $90 before their earnings, now at 130, so over 30% gain. Pretty good. If I like this company, I like it. Watch this high here. So this yesterday's high, 131.27, and then this high here prior to the gap down. That's going to be a key level, 134.21. Here, I'll put a little line here as well. 134.21. There you go. That's going to be a key level to keep an eye on. If I'm a bull, so this point in time, if I wanted to establish a new bullish position, I'd want to wait for a confirmation above that. Getting above that leads us into this area where there was a lot of consolidation, but we will more than likely break over this line and consolidate there for a bit. And at that point, if we zoom all the way out, you're going to have a kind of like a funky double bottom thing going on there. Now, to be fair, never mind, I'll erase that. I was going to say something about the formation on this weekly chart, but it's actually not that bad. I would wait. There is just as likely of a scenario to come back down and roughly test this like 114-ish area. So two ways I'd play this. One, I'd wait for 114 to 109-ish to either establish a long with a tight stop to protect the gap here. And again, this is an island bottom, so it should hold, depending on volume. Or wait for a break of 134.21 and a back test, and as that level holds, establish a new long there. Wouldn't necessarily look to short this stock based on its price action. It wouldn't be a favorable short, in my opinion. So I would look for longs in those two scenarios. But definitely an interesting company. Thank you for putting this on my radar, Martin. It's something I'm going to take a look at after the show. It's it's a field that I've interest in, so it's something that I might actually want exposure in this kind of company. Last name on the heat check today is MCTR, and I pulled this one from StockTwits. This was $5 2 days ago, and it's now $46. It is now a 600 or almost a $700 million market cap company, which means it was 70 million as of 2 days ago, or somewhere in that area. I know nothing about this company. It's a holding company engaged in marketing and advertising services. One-stop advertising solutions. Blah, blah, blah. This company mainly provides the services to mobile game application developers. Okay, the other thing I learned is that this is a Chinese company. One thing you don't know about me, I hate Chinese companies. I think 95% of them are scams in one way or the other. And I think mainly because of their accounting practices, you can't really trust what they say. They report certain things, and this also applies to Bull, by the way. They can report certain things on their earnings and then just kind of like change it. If you've been around long enough, it's not even long enough, it's maybe like 2 years ago. Remember Luckin? I think it was Luckin Coffee. This stock was like a $500 stock, and their financials were great, and then they just came out like, yeah, everything's a lie, like they have no money, whatever. The stock went to like $1 the next day. I think it was Luckin Coffee. Okay, now I'm going to look it up to make sure. I think it's Lukin Coffee. This is a great example, though. Yeah, it's on the OTC market now. On the OTC market, it's LKNCY. But that's got to be after... Anyway, I digress. Check out that story. You'll Google that. You'll find out about it. But anyway, so these are daily charts, by the way. Quite a move. Let's zoom in a little bit here to get some sort of idea. This is the 30-minute chart. I mean, I'm going to need more data here in general. And no one requested this name. This is a name that I just picked out of a hat that was trending on StockTwits. I can see why it's trending on StockTwits because it's just pumping. Not a name I would touch. If you saw this on StockTwits, you probably should stay away. Let's read what people on StockTwits are saying. This is probably why you shouldn't use a platform like that to trade. Number 4 trending. It's already up, like I said, ridiculous 44% on the day since 2 days ago. Do a quick little 887%. Okay, so do you think you should long a company that is up 887%? I'm gonna go ahead and reach out on a limb, and even if you've been investing for 5 minutes, probably go no. I love this. I people are pushing for $500 a share. That is interesting. These are the people who have already owned. So just so a little lesson if you're a newer trader. The people who have owned at $5 right now have more than likely sold some of their position, if not all, and are now partying that it is all the way up here, and they want you to buy more so they could sell more. So, this company has no information on it that I could find. It's not that popular. It's just popular in StockTwits. Big markup. Chinese company. Red flags all around on the play. Would not touch it all. Also wouldn't short. I don't even know if there's no options. I wouldn't short equity on this name with it being such a light market cap company either. Do not touch MCTR. I think you're going to have a very regrettable mistake if you do. I wouldn't even touch it as a momentum play because it's in advertising and marketing, which is already a little gray, plus it being a Chinese company and plus being up 800%. Stay away. That would be my stark suggestion for you to consider. So that's going to be the heat check for the day, guys. Hopefully you found that helpful. And we talked through some hyped up names, some exciting names, and maybe you found a new name for you to look into. Alrighty, so let's check back in on our Apple. I saw it jump to about $2 there for a minute. It went back to my entry there, 214, just shy of my entry. We'll check back in on Apple. Harsh little fall there, back to that original high. So remember we broke that high from earlier, and we kind of like farted around here. That's now your POC, so keep an eye on that. I think I'm going to be patient on this one. I'm pretty confident it's going to pull back down. It is, like I said, it is showing relative strength, to be fair. But I am pretty confident we're going to see Apple pull to 203, 202 by the end of the day. Let's just check in on the rest of our market internals here before I let you guys go on the day. And if you haven't already, cheap second plug, please do me a quick favor. If you're watching on YouTube, Instagram, or X, drop a like, drop a follow, subscribe. And again, if you subscribe, you get a little notification here, so I'll be able to shout you out live every single day. So if this is something you guys enjoy, if you find it helpful, do me a quick favor, interact in some way, some shape, some form. It does help me very much in the algorithm, and I greatly appreciate you helping me out as I try to help you out with your financial trading journey. All right, let's give you a tight wrap up for the end of the day here. It's 10:30, so I'll let you go on your way here momentarily. Let's zoom over the market one last time, see what we're looking at before I let you guys go. All right, so SPY hit that not all-time high, localized high on the day, came off that pretty sharply into that data off at 10 o'clock, and now moving back to the upside here. It's looking a little hesitating. So what you want to see here as a bull as a potential inverse head and shoulder, where you have a shoulder, here's your head, here's your shoulder again. So getting some level of consolidation, and I would use this POC here on the daily, intraday here on the 1 minute at 597.50 as your second shoulder here. Watch for that to hold if you build out that second shoulder before a continued push to the upside. Obviously, you need volatility to cooperate with that kind of move. And as I said, 600 is a realistic possibility. As I mentioned at open today, that 600 and that other level, 601, 601.92. Realistic possibility today if we see that play out. Looking at the Qs, a little bit more bearish actually comparatively, which makes a lot of sense when we look through our Mag 6, as I like to call it. Tilting more bearishly on your Google and your Amazon and your Tesla, and obviously I'm bearish on Apple right now, so this could be where we see some weakness today actually start to come out on tech. So you're seeing a similar move here in comparison to SPY, but not getting as much bullishness comparatively if you're looking at the two side by side. Also, IWM is not looking fantastic either. You're going to want to see this 209.18 area hold. That's basically your LOI on the day here. It could mark down to 207.76 if this breaks with some volume here, which right now, if I wasn't going to leave you guys, I would actually consider a short here on IWM. You could do with that information what you will. Decent tightish stop above here, but I would consider a short here on IWM as a day trade, like literally right now. So do with that what you will. Volatility, watch 1808. We actually got within 1 penny there, and you can actually see the relationship here. So that's why these levels are so important that I give you guys. 1807, with the low a day on SPY, was at the same exact time. 10:09 a.m. We go to the VIX. We look at 10:09 a.m. Boom. It's a penny off, but pretty close. If this breaks, that will spell bad news on the day for the overall market. So make sure you're watching your VIX. Make sure you watch 1808 specifically. Other thing to be mindful of, VVIX has started to climb. So it opened up down, and it's mostly climbing on the day. While VIX has been, I guess, marginally down to sideways on the day, did have that pop up there. So it's showing that volatility is becoming a little bit more volatile. So we could be in for a little bit of a rocky midday afternoon. Now, we don't have any other news. Let me just double verify before I say that. We don't have any other expected news throughout the day, with the exception of Beige Book at 2, which typically is a nothing burger, but can happen. And then you got Trump signing proclamation, so he might just say something. And if anyone mentions the word taco, expect the market to go down. Because he'll probably get mad and say something about how he's not wavering on tariffs and whatever. So make sure if you pay attention to that, in case a reporter may ask him or say something about taco. You guys already know my position on Apple here. I'm bearish on Apple. I'm going to stay bearish on Apple here. Hatchet says Apple head and shoulders forming. Yeah, you can see that. Shoulder, head, shoulder here. Watch for that downside again. Keep an eye on that old all-time high. Or I keep saying all-time high. High of the day here, 204.82. You could probably use that as your trigger because now you're under that POC. Like I said, my price target's on this because I'm going to be leaving you guys here momentarily. I'm looking for 203.75, 203.50, and getting back to 202.50. So looking for about a $1 to $2 drop here actually on Apple. And if we look at our where is it? Our delta on these contracts, because I entered at the money essentially, should have decent delta. Got about 50-cent delta, so a 2-point drop would make these contracts, again, assuming no delta appreciation, roughly worth about $3. So if we do some quick math, off a 217 entry, that would give you a 38% gain. So pretty solid. $100 a contract roughly. So be mindful or watch that if you have a similar entry. We'll look at our other Mag 6 and I will let you guys go. Microsoft still hovering around that old all-time high. You guys know how I feel about that. I've said it a few times. I don't know if today's the day. I will let you know with an update on X if today's the day. How's that sound? If you've been watching, you should know. But today could be the day. I do prefer the idea of a spread, just because that takes the theta out of the equation for the most part. And it gives me more time to be correct, even if it flutters sideways. So a spread may be the better decision here if you like that idea of a short-sided trade on Microsoft. Now, be mindful again, AVGO's earnings could affect specifically Microsoft because they're in this similar area of cloud computing and whatnot, and software. So it could be some sort of partnership, or who knows? Probably not, but there could be some sort of effect there. So just watch that, just to be aware of that risk if you are taking a similar risk in Microsoft. Google's pretty solid. It's really trying to hold the 21 EMA on the daily. It may just have to flutter down here for 4 or 5 days at this point, which I'm not too mad about. Again, I'm long 162.64. Not much to say, honestly. I don't think it's really bullish or bearish here in general. I think longer term, so looking at like our weekly, it's more bullish than it is bearish. But it may have to flutter around here for a little bit. If you look at your weekly chart here, and again, very small time frame comparatively, but you have some level of like a V-shaped recovery, or you can even argue like a cup and then a handle here on the weekly on the last 3 candles here, 2 candles even. So getting another day another week or two, 5 days roughly, to help that form out a little bit and break to the upside might be what you need to see here. Volume's been okay. And your MACD is starting to flip on the weekly. Your counterpoint is that it's flipping to the downside on the daily, so that's why I said shorter term sideways price action, but longer term revision to the upside on Google. Not much to comment on Amazon. I've talked about that at nauseum. Basically, one level that matters. And same with Tesla. It's South 360. It's a bear. I'll keep saying it. I said it last week. I will continue to say it, and I'll continue to be right because it's very simple. You got a lot of gaps here to the downside. I'm not chasing it in any which way. I kind of don't even want exposure to Tesla at this point. That's just me. You do you. But I would not be chasing longs on Tesla. I would not be buying on the dip here yet. If you want to be long Tesla, I think the area you should look for is somewhere between the range of 291.85 and 309.22. So you still got about 10% drop here, at least in my opinion, overall on Tesla. All right, those Apple contracts are back at $2. I think I'm going to be leaving you guys in decent hands here. You guys know what I'm looking for on Apple, so I'm going to leave you guys with that. You know what to do. You have the game plan. You'll be all set. But keep an eye on all of this, actually. Like, it's very interesting. Now we're seeing a diverged market. I'll leave you one more note. When markets are not diverged, you can feel more confident in terms of risk. So I like to talk about risk a lot in this program. When you see markets are not diverged, SPYs going up, Qs going up, IWM going up, or they're all going down, your risk, you can be more risk on with the market because think of these individual markets as wind behind your back in a trade, right? If the wind is blowing from 3 different directions, then your trade can still work, but you might get pushed around, right? So to speak. But if the wind's all blowing one way, then you're more than likely going to be correct overall in the position. So if you already are playing a bearish setup, for example, like I am with Apple, and the market, which right now is diverged, but if the market all agreed on a downside move, so the SPY moves down, the Qs move down, IWM moves down, then I've got wind behind my back. The overall market sentiment is tipping bearish. I'm already in a bear position on what I deem to be a bearish chart. Consequently, it adds to the sentiment, helps you to get to have a successful trade. I don't know really else how to phrase that. It's just something where you should keep an eye on general, so your sectors, your market internals, but how all 3 indexes are always moving, especially in whatever you have an exposure in. So today, for example, with Apple, I'm exposed via tech, so QQQ. And look at this. Actually, this is kind of cool. I didn't even notice this. I have an LOI down here from 525.99. We wicked that essentially today, off by 2 pennies, and that lines up with the VIX as well. So I know that if this level breaks here, which it's going to be a support, to be fair, wow. All right, maybe I'll chart that out because I doubt that there's not. Yeah, there's another line in here somewhere. I've not planned it out yet, but you're more than likely going to get a push to the downside here, especially if this 525.99 level on the Qs breaks to the downside. I kind of want to just stick around and see if these contracts, they did go back to break even essentially, but I'm pretty confident this is going to play out. And I don't want to bore you with staring at a chart and having nothing to say. So that will wrap it up for today's episode of the Atomcash Angle. I hope you all had a fantastic time. I hope you all learned something most importantly. And some may say you will need an edge to trade. Well, I always like to look at things from a different angle, and that is what you will always get right here on the Atomcash Angle. Have a great rest of your day, and remember, precision beats prediction every damn time. See you guys next week.
The time has passed, and that's a wrap.